waiting for a few people to get on board, but thank you for those who are joining us on this glorious Good Friday morning, and a good morning to you as well. Thanks for tuning in. This is our Yard Force live broadcast on Facebook, where you've got an opportunity to ask a variety of garden related questions, and we'll hopefully be able to answer those throughout the course of the live stream. We've also had a whole host of questions related to how to look after your lawn and what to grow in the garden. So we're going to divide this live stream up into two sections: how to mow and what to grow. My name's Tommy Cross. I'm a landscape gardener. I'm lucky enough to work with Yard Force, and if you tune in all the way through to the end today and keep your eyes peeled, you have the chance to win a fantastic line trimmer and lawnmower combination pack from Yard Force, both of which are cordless. You've got the freedom to keep your garden looking fantastic all summer long. Now, we've had a lot of questions in the build up to this Facebook Live broadcast, so I'm going to get straight into those. I'm going to tackle the lawn first, and we've got a great question in from Jenny Morton, who has asked about how to keep her grass looking good. At the moment, the soil is really boggy, it goes wet over the winter, and it's hard to look after. Now, this tends to be one of the most common complaints that most gardeners have, and sadly the only way to remedy it is to do a little bit of hard work. Now, two of the top tools that you could use for this, one is a fork for aerating, and what I mean by that is using a standard garden fork, and in the tail end of the summer months or the start of autumn, you want to get out there and start penetrating and then loosening the soil structure using a garden fork. The clue's in the name. The reason why it's called aerating is that you're going to get oxygen and air down into the root system of the lawn. Now, in some areas the soil may compact too much and start to what I call coagulate. It's where all the moisture bonds together and the soil loses all its structure. The only way to get rid of that is to get rid of the soil and to then reinstate that with a sandier based soil. It's called root zones. If you ask any good horticultural or garden supplier, they'll know exactly what you're talking about. Root zone soil is a combination of sand and soil, and it's perfect for them reseeding come the spring months. If you really want to make sure that you're going to get a great finish, I would always suggest that you start your lawn work now and you start using a lawn turf. That way you're going to get an immediate effect. It'll bed in quickly. Make sure, obviously, in a day like today that you water, and I'll come back with some watering tips later on in the show. So, Jenny, hopefully that answers your question. If you want any more information, feel free to shout out. We've also got a question from Eileen Bowden, who said the cordless lawnmower looks fantastic. How many square meters or what kind of size garden is it capable of mowing? Now, this is a 34 centimeter mower. You also do a 32 centimeter lawnmower. The first thing you'll notice about this is there isn't one of these. That's the difference with Yard Force. Whether you're looking for the freedom of cordless or the power of petrol, you've got a choice of both. But to focus on the cordless lawnmower for a second, this is capable of cutting up to 500 square meters on a single charge. You've got a 40 volt lithium battery stowed away in a splash and water resistant housing here. You've also got a safety key as well, so that will stop if you've got children like me who are curious into everything. It's not my 4-year-old I have to worry about, it's my 2-year-old. She'll take this off for a joyride. Great way to disarm that is by taking the safety key out, so they can't take it off for a spin whilst you turn your back. You've got Samsung cells powering this, so it means not only are you getting the longevity, you're also getting the technology of this battery working in conjunction with the motor, so it'll optimize the use of the battery. So it means it's going to go as long as possible. The battery power ramps up and the output of the battery ramps up when the motor senses resistance. So the longer your grass, obviously the more battery it will use. The shorter your grass, the longer your battery will run for. It's technology from top to bottom with Yard Force, and it really is pioneering. The great thing about mowing without cables is that you're never going to have to keep looking behind yourself, and you've always got that dreaded fear of cutting through the cable, and you're constantly forever, I don't know about you, but flipping the cable behind you, trying to do that kind of cable sashay. You can forget about cables, you can forget about the frustrations. One single charge takes around about an hour to a full charge, and then you've got up to 500 square meters, obviously depending on the length of your lawn. All the features and facets that we hope from a lawnmower. With a single lever height adjustment going from 75 millimeters all the way down to 25 millimeters. At this time of year, it's essential that you don't rush in to mowing your lawn on the lowest setting. If you've left your lawn to grow longer over the last few months, we've had a real good mixture of sunshine and showers. That combines beautifully to encourage lawn growth. If you're going to make the first cut of your lawn this weekend and you're rushing out onto its lowest settings, just like my barber did, you will damage the lawn's integrity. You'll also end up with scorch marks. Start on a higher setting. You want to leave your lawn no lower at the moment than 40 millimeters because we've got a hot weekend ahead of us. Start as high as you can and cut down slowly through the increments. That way you won't damage the integrity of the lawn and you won't get that yellowing as a result of cutting your lawn too low too quickly. So hopefully that answers your question. Who else have we got who's been on message as well? We've got Tracy Bright, who says her builders have trashed her garden whilst they were putting cladding on the house. I'm sorry to hear that, Tracy. How do I restore and repair my grass? Again, sadly, you need to be prepared to invest a little bit of time and effort, and a little bit of elbow grease as well. You've sent in a photo which shows, I don't think you'll pick that up, but hopefully you can, but it's on the stream below. Very anemic, very damaged, very well trodden grass. Don't worry, you will be amazed at how robust lawn turf is. Now with a bit of encouragement, a bit of feeding, a little bit of TLC, you can get your lawn looking fantastic in next to no time. Now's the opportune time to start because we've got great weather and the perfect blend of longer days in sunshine, a bit of watering and a bit of manual effort. First and foremost, grab yourself a spring rake and then start raking the affected areas. You'll start pulling up all the dead thatch, you'll start pulling up all the moss, you'll start pulling away any of the expired or unrecoverable lawn turf. Now, give that a good going over and don't be scared if your lawn starts to resemble a muddy patch. That's when you can start top dressing. Again, you want to use something like a root zone soil, which is going to encourage the seed or the turf that you place on top. Now, if you want an instant effect from your lawn, now obviously you can use lawn turf and you can purchase that from any garden wholesaler or horticultural specialist or lawn turf supplier. If you're a bit more patient, you can sow your seed, but it's all about preparing the ground first. You want to dress the exposed ground with root zone soil, level that off. You can either use a bit of what we call walk of the penguins, which is you'll see landscapers shuffling up and down on top of newly prepared soil. It's not because we haven't got the right tools for the job, it's actually compacting the soil at the right rate. You don't want your soil too dense that the root structure can't permeate into it. You don't want it too loose that it's just going to fly away or blow in the wind. So compact your soil, up and down, and left and right. Give it a gentle rake over again with a wider toothed rake. Then you can sow your seed. And in this time of year, with the weather the way it is, you want to give it some encouragement. You want to give it a good watering, and sooner rather than later, you'll start to see those seeds germinate. If you are going to lawn turf, same methodology again in the soil preparation. Make sure you do the walk of the penguins or use a lawn roller. Get the soil level, and then you can look after your lawn. Don't feed it straight away because a lot of lawn turf suppliers will have already pre-fed the lawn. That's why it comes in looking lush, rich and green. You want to let that feed through into the plant first. So after about 6 weeks is when you want to feed your new lawn turf. But do keep watering it. I mentioned I was going to talk about watering. On a day like today, we're going to expect temperatures around about 20 degrees plus. Somebody has actually asked the question. Who was it? Let's go back. Who asked it? It was a great question. Let's see if we can find it. Someone told me not to water the grass in the sunshine. That's from Tammy Richardson, Westrup. Absolutely. If you can avoid it, get up with the larks or just before dark are the two opportune times to feed your lawn. The lawn at that time of day is actively recruiting the moisture on the ground, so it's taking in that dew that appears in the morning. Also a great time to be out there and watering the lawn as well, because I don't know about you, I find it quite fairly tranquil being up a little bit earlier or into the early evening. It's a fantastic time just to be in and around the garden and observe things that you might want to improve, kind of areas of beds and borders that aren't looking as good as they should be. So you can then water those as well as the lawn. The reason why you don't want to water the lawn in the middle of the day, especially on a day like today, is that moisture can actually burn the grass blade itself. It's a very, very delicate structure in some respects. It's incredibly tough, But a little blade of grass like that, with moisture on top of it, underneath the sun, like it would be today, will start heating up, and that can cause the tinging and that yellowness that you will find if you do water your lawn throughout the middle of the day. So up with the larks, just before dark, perfect time to water your lawn. And you can do that either yourself manually with a garden hose, or you can put out a sprayer system as well. Both would be fine. Try not to oversaturate a lawn. It won't do any damage if you do forget about it, but overwatering day after day isn't great for your lawn. Give it a good watering in the morning, good watering in the evening, especially over this bank holiday weekend. So, who else has asked a question? Mary G. Jordan, she would like to know what is a good feed for the lawn. Any ideas, please? When you're buying a lawn feed, there are so many to buy. Now, Yard Force have teamed up with Richard Jackson, who is incredibly famous in the horticultural scenes. He's a leading name at QVC, but he also has a fantastic range of pro-formula-based feeds for both plants and for lawns. I think Yard Force are working with him and actually giving away some of his fantastic lawn magic. This is a soluble feed, and what's so great about a soluble feed is it's going to get straight into the root system. It's high nitrogen, so you're going to see results very, very quickly, and it's going to promote what you can't see on the surface, which is the root structure, and that is the most important thing of any plant, whether it's lawn or whether it's your patio pot or whether it's the borders and beds. You want to encourage the root growth of any plant. Now obviously with a non-soluble feed, you will want to make sure that you don't want any children out when you are sowing it, and if you have got any pets, you want to make sure that they're not around if you're going to use a non-soluble feed. What I mean by a non-soluble feed is ones that come in a pellet form. The virtue of that is you can see where you've fed, but you'll have to wait for that to then work its way into the root system, either by watering it in or letting the elements do it. So there's two schools of thought. Personally, I don't think you can beat Lawn Magic. It gets straight into where it needs to, and the results speak for themselves. I use it myself. It's almost foolproof. If I can use it, if my dad can use it, it's a great barometer in terms of how easy it is to use. You simply put it into a watering can, and then you walk around your lawn and water it. Who else has asked some questions on the lawns? Claire Woodall Infants. Not long moved in and we cut the grass the other day. How do we get rid of the patchy grass and get it looking nice and green? Again, it's all about investing a bit of time and effort. You want to water your lawn, as I mentioned, as early as you can, late as you can. And you also want to promote any root growth and development by feeding it. You combine the two and you'll get your lawn looking fantastic in no time. Areas of damp, areas that look a little bit threadbare, you might want to impart a little bit more effort. If you look back on early on the feed, on our live Facebook feed, you'll see me talking about how to aerate and also how to rid yourself of any of the moss. So I just going to do a double check to make sure I haven't missed anybody else. I think we're good for lawn. So how to mow and what's the right mower for you? Now, you might just be a petrol head. You might just want the power of petrol. Yard Force do a vast range of petrol mowers. Everything from key start, which is this one here, so that's working intuitively. With a Briggs & Stratton engine, it means you can simply turn the key and start your petrol mower off. If you don't have the need for a petrol mower, if you've got a slightly more intimate space of lawn, if your garden isn't a big sprawling palatial pad, then you might want just the convenience of cordless. You saw me talking about this earlier on. Simply charge, push the button, off you go, you're ready to mow. There are benefits of both. It all depends on the scale of your garden and your lawn mowing needs. If you've got rough terrain, you've got undulating ground, and you've got large areas of grass, petrol would be fantastic for you. You've got the longevity of the petrol power engine, you've got that ease of use using the key start, you've got the width, you've got the steel deck and these thick articulated wheels, single lever height adjustment. I know I'm racing through, I don't want to bore you with technical bombardments. Again, if you've got a slightly smaller lawn, pretty much all the same features you can think of without the weight of the petrol engine. Both are cordless, both are hassle-free mowing. So we've tackled how to mow. Now we're going to go and show you what to grow. So I'm going to leave you with the nature and a bit of landscape for the minute, and I'll join you down on my potting shed. So, this is, I think, possibly my favourite time of the year, and has to be one of my most enjoyable jobs. Even as a landscaper, I actually find gardening, it's not a busman's holiday for me, it's something I really, really enjoy. And it's a very personal thing in terms of creating the garden you want. But I think your garden really should be a sanctuary, whether you've got kids and young children out playing, as a family, barbecuing on summer days like today. There is something quintessentially British about being out in the garden on a summer's day like today. So we've tackled the lawn. How do we tackle our pots, our patio planters, and given our borders a bit of a blitz? And we've had, again, a lot of questions. I think there's quite a lot of questions coming in through on the feed as well. I'm going to try and answer them as best as I can. I've got Sharon Bithell Lowe, who has asked, what are the best plants to buy to put in pots on my patio? I like lots of heights and dense growth. Now that's a real tough one, because my taste and your taste may differ. I don't think you can beat alliums at this time of year. That single stem and that beautiful globe of lilac colour. You could plant agapanthus for later on in the summer months. If you want to encourage bees into your garden, things like digitalis, foxglove are great, and you could underplant any of the taller plants with things like bacopa. You could plant campanula again. It will give you that dense, thick foliage that you're after, or you could just simply plant up with a whole host of bedding plants, things like your pansies and your violas, if you just want instant, effortless colour. I mean, there's a wealth of plants to go up, but hopefully I've just given you a few tips there. Who else has asked some planting up questions? One thing whilst we're talking about potting up, a lot of pots on patios tend to be I think, one of the most difficult things to do, locating a pot on a patio. You want it to get as much sunshine and as light as it can. You want it to be a focal point, but sometimes it's nice to be able to move the plants around, and doing that when it's fully laden with soil and compost can be quite difficult, especially if you've got larger pots. Now, cheeky trick to show you is to use something like this underneath your compost. This is the itch-free insulation. Stuff that down underneath the bottom of the pot. That will hold some moisture, then give a generous fill of compost above. That way you're going to get drainage, but you're not going to get the weight of having to fill a whole pot up with soil and compost. Remember, if you are planting up your pots, it's always integral to make sure you use a free draining compost. And if so, try and get a layer of gravel at the very bottom of the smaller pots. That will just encourage drainage through. You don't want your pots and your patio pots becoming waterlogged. That will soon starve the oxygen. So hopefully a couple of tips there in order to get you started on potting up. Jennifer Carroll's asked a really interesting question. How do I make my garden bird friendly but keep it safe for my pet rabbits when they're out? Now, you're combining two of my favourite things, especially this time of year. We've got Easter, we've got the rabbits in there, but you've got wildlife coming into your garden. You don't have to be a resident twitcher in order to appreciate the birds coming into your garden, and it's very, very easy to encourage them simply by putting out some bird feeders. Now, depending on what wildlife you want to encourage in, if you want a mixture of kind of small nesting birds, make sure you give them a different spread of food. Not every bird wants to eat the same thing, so a balance of peanuts, mixed bird feed, and things like Niger seed for finches, especially if you want that elusive bullfinch in your garden. Well, I think one of the most beautiful birds in the UK. Nuthatches will go for the peanuts. If you want the smaller birds, things like the gold-crested wren, the blue tits, the grey tits, just a balanced mix of bird food hung in places where they could got escape routes from larger predatory birds or cats. So to encourage the birds in, you obviously got to give them some food, but you've obviously got to give them somewhere to hide back as well without encroaching into your garden. So hedgerows around the outside of the garden would be a great one. Things like pyracanthus, great because the birds can hide in behind the needles of the pyracanthus. But come the later part of the year, they've also got free food with all the berrying. Another one is Cotoneaster with big, thick red berries, which the blackbirds love. You could also plant up things like, I'm thinking holly as well. Again, this is just giving birds somewhere to escape into, and it's going to give you evergreen foliage. You can get those in a pleached form as well. Ceanothus is another one you could grow up against a fence without it encroaching into your garden. You can keep it tight back. Not only will it encourage the birds in, it will also encourage the bumblebees and the butterflies in as well. So hopefully that's given you a good bit of information on what you can plant up. Now, these are the questions that I really like, the shade-loving, because I can sympathise with you. I've got a north-facing aspect of the front of my house, and trying to get that to look pretty can actually be quite a daunting task. So I've got Christina Hodson I have trouble growing flowers in my shade garden. Are there any colourful shade tolerant plants I can use, please? There are, believe it or not, there are quite a few plants that actually enjoy being in the shade. One of them is, I think, the easiest, probably the most bulletproof plant you could buy is a stilby. Not only do they like damp conditions, they also like shaded areas as well. And they give you these plumes, almost like candy floss, in a variety of different colour. So you could blanket plant lower beds using a stilby, and that's going to give you foliage pretty much all year round. They will die back in the winter months, but you get those beautiful plumes of a variety of colour, almost like candy floss. I'm a sucker for things like ferns. I just think the variety of textures, colours, shades and leaf formations on the ferns are beautiful. You won't get them all year round, sadly, but when they're out, they are fantastic and they will absolutely thrive in shade loving areas. You could pocket areas with a bit of colour using things like heuchera. Heuchera obsidian is a great one. That plum pudding, it's called, a deep velvety, almost chocolatey purple, fantastic looking plant. Remember, keep your eyes open because there is an Easter egg hidden somewhere. I don't know where it could be, where it could possibly be. If you shout out when you've seen it, you've got a chance to win that fantastic twin pack from Yard Force. That's a cordless lawnmower and a cordless line trimmer. Christina, I hope I've touched on some ideas for you. Please shout up if you want some more. I'll give you a whole list of what you can plant in shaded areas. Katie Raven, thanks for your question. What could I grow to intertwine my willow arch? Again, plenty to go at. My two favourites are climbing hydrangea. You get succulent vine growth, and then you get a beautiful cascade of very delicate looking flowers. You could go for clematis, and this time of year it will just be strewn with colour, but you might want to go for clematis armandii if you wanted all year colour in terms of later flowering, and then you've got the abundance of the evergreen growth. So you're not going to lose that with the clematis armandii. It's an evergreen clematis. Wisteria, if you've got a bit of patience and you don't want an immediate payoff, you can train a wisteria around your arch. That way you're going to get a sensational plume of kind of lilac, deep purples come the summer months, and that's going to grow very, very well over the time that you take. Make sure you invest time with the wisteria, always cut it back. And again, if you shout out and you want any tips, you can always get in touch with us and I'll give you as many tips as you can do to look after whatever it is you choose to grow across your arch. But a few ideas for you there, all of which will give you a balance of evergreen growth or thatch growth. Last one before I forget, jasmine. How can I forget jasmine? Blimey. If you want foliage as well as that perfume, jasmine is a fantastic way to get a combination of both. Sharon Ann Evans, I have a very boring long garden. It gets water soaked in the winter, takes ages to dry out, meaning I can't cut the grass until at least May or June. They've had a hedgerow taken out and they want to get their garden looking great. Well, a really easy way to do that on a longer linear garden is to get colour around the periphery. Use your lawn to draw the eye out, and the best way to cultivate your lawn is, as you saw, sadly it's going to be down to a bit of elbow grease. Get rid of those damper areas, get rid of those barren areas, as I showed you earlier on, by aerating, removing all the dead thatch. But if you build up the peripheries of your garden using raised beds, you can then put the soil in, the better soil into your garden. The advantage of the raised beds, not many, you get instant elevation. So you can take small plants and plant them in height, making them look bigger than they are. You're also improving the soil structure because you're putting new soil in. Essential as always when you're potting up anything, whether it's your patio pots, or whether it's larger border beds, always work with their soil structure in mind. So you want to have a gravel base and then free draining soil mixed in with some free draining nutrient rich compost. Then you can plant up the peripheries and you can put a whole fanfare of colour in there at this time of year, or you can just be as minimalist and contemporary as you want. A lot of people now are gearing towards box balls and creating cloud formations with a little bit of grass underplanting or iris for height at the back. You could add pleach trees up a length. I can see your garden's got fence rows there, fence panels. You could have a whole row of pleach plants growing up against those. Espalier apples would be fantastic because you'll get your immediate colour come the spring with all that blossom, but you'll also be able to get produce as well from your espalier trees. So you'll be able to pick apples, pears, cherries, depending on what you plant up. So you get a balance of everything. And not only will you encourage growth in your garden, new colour, but you'll also invite the birds, the bees, the butterflies into the garden as well. One of the plants I think is often overlooked as well, and a lot of people consider it as a weed. Actually, I've got a bit of a soft spot for it, which is Lalandia. What am I on about? Buddleia. Sorry, you'll see it growing along the sides of the railway tracks. It will grow literally anywhere. It's probably one of the most bulletproof plants you can put in your garden. You can hack it back at the end of the season down to a stump, and it'll always come back. The butterflies absolutely adore it, and you get these conical sprouts of purple or white flower, and some great mix of foliage as well, especially if you go for a variegated one. So very inexpensive to buy, but a great way to add colour, height, drama, and encourage wildlife into your garden. I think, no, there's more. There was a really taxing question. I had to put some thought into this. Where are you now? Somebody has asked about underplanting a Magnolia grandiflora. So there it is, Martin Yuchev. Martin, this is a really good question, thank you. 2 huge Magnolia grandiflora in front of the brick wall, very deep shade all day long. I've been trying to grow hostas, ferns over the last 6 years with no success whatsoever. What do you think will survive under the deep shade? Now it's a tough one because Magnolia is going to be ericaceous loving soil. And what I mean by ericaceous, it's slightly different in terms of composition and acidity to your conventional ready bought compost. So Magnolias like an ericaceous mix underneath them. So you want to stick with an ericaceous plant as well. So I would go for something like a dwarf pieris to underplant, maybe a few of them. Again, at this time of year, you get those delicate bell-like flowers, and then you get the evergreen foliage around it. Not only do they like the ericaceous soil, they also like the shade as well. So having something like that, or perhaps a shade-loving azalea, might be a bit taxing depending on how much shade there is, or a shade-loving rhododendron. Try and keep within that ericaceous family. Go for a dwarf growing format. That way you're going to get colour, you're going to get evergreen foliage, and you're also going to get that balance in the soil composition that they're all going to survive in as well. So Martin, I hope that's okay. Again, if you want any more information, feel free to shout out. And we've got lawn feed questions mixing in here. Who else have we got here? I think I've covered, no, Michelle Hardy, new build, the new build. This is, I think, the most common complaint that we get from prospective customers. They've moved into a new house. Their garden is nothing more than 6 patio flags and a lawn which has been laid on, well, I won't go into it, but we have found toilet seats in new build soil. That just goes to show just how bad. An entire toilet seat, half a panel of insulation, we found bits of wire, so I can completely sympathise with you, Michelle. New build soil and gardens are sadly notorious in terms of being a toxic environment almost for anything green or living. You suggested maybe putting in some raised beds. Absolutely. Again, we talked about improving soil integrity. By building raised beds, you're in charge of what the soil integrity is going to be. Always dig down as deep as you can. You're going to have to get a bit, you have to get ready and prepared to put in a bit of elbow grease, but dig out as much of the matter as you can. For a new lawn, you can reinstate with some root zone topsoil, maybe try and put in a drainage system, a land drainage system if it's really bad. Or sadly, a lot of new builds, we have to install artificial lawn turf because there really isn't the nutrient benefit in the existing soils in order to put a lawn in which has got any chance of sustaining over the summer months. So perhaps maybe think about artificial lawns, but absolutely raised beds. You can then build them up, make sure you pay attention to drainage in the lower areas, then some good blended loam topsoil mixed in with some nutrient-rich compost, and then you're free to plant it up, and hopefully with every chance of success. Where are we now? I'm going to try and make sure I haven't missed anybody off the list. Remember, shout out if you've seen that Easter egg. I think that is us covered. If you want any more information about how to mow, what mower to use, what to plant up, please feel free to get in touch with us here at Yard Force. I promised my little boy I would plant him an Easter egg tree, so maybe I'll have to come back to this one. I don't hold up much hope for these. But if you have noticed the hidden Easter egg, shout it out, because you've got an opportunity to win a fantastic 32 centimetre yard force lawnmower and line trimmer, both of which cordless. Remember, if you're looking for the power of petrol, the convenience of cordless, Yard Force have got you covered. Thank you so much everyone who's tuned in on this glorious Good Friday. I hope you have a fantastic Easter weekend and spend some great time out in the garden. I'm off to go and do some gardening myself, and hopefully I'll catch you guys soon. Bye bye.